Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the best brain body tools to use to condition your brain to do its best work so you could feel, look, and do your absolute best. Folks, today I apologize, but there might be some noise. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on editing. But if it does, it is what it is. You know, sometimes life brings you lemons and you gotta learn how to make lemonade. And it's all about that persevering mindset that no matter what, you're gonna get out there and make things happen. And in order to do that, you need to learn how to make your brain your ally, how to make your brain work for you and with you, delivering the best performance you are capable of given the situation and circumstances. And that's what podcast is all about. So you ultimately could unlock more of your potential, unleash it into this world to build your dreams and to create the world we all imagine, the world that feels like magic. So besides that, folks, today is our 5-bullet Brainy Monday, where I'm gonna bring to you all the different tools and hacks and tips that I've discovered over the past weekend, over the past week, and sometimes it's something new-worthy, sometimes it's just something new that I personally learned and realized that it is a very effective tool for you to also use, and I decided to share it with you, to teach it to you, so you could again use it, get out there and create the best life experience that you deserve and want. So let's start. First, some mindset and mental state adjustment tools so you could cognitively perform better. So this one was actually sent to me by Google as a recommendation based on what I usually read and go through. The article is called The 5-Minute Habit based on neuroscience and that will change your life. I actually thought it would be something around building habits, but it was something completely different. And I actually loved it. And that's why I decided to share it with you. So the 5-minute habit that will change your life. So what is it? And the article is about, let me read you an extract. It's true that in order to live our purpose in this world, we've got to have a vision and a plan for achieving our dreams. We must be tenacious in working toward our goals, and we might occasionally have to sacrifice a little sleep for that dream. However, hustle at any cost culture has convinced us that this means choosing between success and quality of life, health, happiness, and fulfillment. But this mindset is actually not accurate. It threatens our bottom lines and secretly sabotages success. This is the most interesting part that has been proven by research, and a lot of hardworking entrepreneurs I personally work with, they're just not natural at understanding and applying this concept. So listen up, folks. The stress, exhaustion, and decision fatigue caused by hustling can all lead to mood swings. Our logical processes literally shut down, opening up the floodgates to irritability, frustration, anger, and sadness. In other words, the primitive part of our brains controlled by emotion takes over and dictates our behaviors, while our high-level thinking is put on pause. So what it basically means, folks, is when you're stressed, and again, that is confirmed by research, your prefrontal cortex shuts down to maybe not fully, but to a large extent. And you're not making decisions anymore with your logical mind. You are making decisions driven by emotions and your instincts. And those are not your best decisions, folks. Definitely not the ones that will lead you towards greater success, long-term goals, and against all the day-to-day, minute-to-minute impulses that actually lead towards outcomes when it comes to our long-term goals, right? So because of that, it can sabotage our success, our productivity, our creativity, our best ideas. So many things will go wrong when we hustle ourselves to the point when we are stressed and tensed all the time. So the science is not questioning this aspect of brain's performance. When you are stressed, when you don't manage your tensions and micro and macro stresses in life, your brain does not work that well. You are driven by habits, by patterns, by the, things that you always do out of habit, out of response, not out of out of illogical thinking, this impulsivity, just something that you're being in your best state you would never do. So your productivity suffers, your creativity, innovative thinking, executive function, positive mindset, intuition, memory, all of that suffers when you don't manage your stress. And that's why it is important to learn certain practices that are fast, that are easy, that are quick, that help you to switch your brain and your system into parasympathetic mode, rest and digest mode, where your creativity is enhanced, where you think outside of the box, where your executive function or your decision-making part of the brain, logical part of the brain works and does its best magic. Your intuition, your memory, everything works better when you are in a parasympathetic state of your nervous system. When you're hyper stressed, it gives you the focus, but a very narrow focus. And it might work to solve an emergency and will keep you alive if the lion were chasing you. But if you're in your normal life and you are always in that fight or flight response, your reactions to the world, they're going to be automatic and they're going to be the same, and you're never going to do anything differently, and you never get to tap into your deeper psyche, your deeper consciousness that very often has the most prolific answers to any challenge of your life. So back to practices, folks. How do you switch easily your nervous system, and how do you start acquiring this skill of switching your stressed mode into your relaxed and rested mode and state and parasympathetic mode of your nervous system? So practice number 1, close your eyes. If you didn't know that, your like 50% of your brain is dedicated towards your vision. And when you close your eyes, it almost instantaneously puts your brain into more relaxed state and not in that fight or flight. You almost instantly calm down, and all of your stress reactions become better responses. And soon, when you close your eyes and just sit there in a relaxed position for a while, you might get some insights. So, keep a notepad by your side to be ready to jot down new ideas and answers to your challenges, solutions to your problems that you haven't thought before. So just by closing your eyes, because it usually takes so much more of your brain power, and because when your eyes are open, you are in that you might be in that stress state, but when you close your eyes, you are not going to be in that stress state anymore. It's just because it's not how our nervous system works. When you close your eyes, it's kind of like an automatic signal to your brain. We are safe, we are okay, and it's time to relax. Because when do you usually close your eyes? When you're about to nap or sleep, right? And so it switches your nervous system on almost instantaneously. Now, of course, naps work magic for your alertness, your brain's capacity to work on creative tasks or on challenging tasks. But if you cannot take a nap, or you don't usually fall asleep, and you're just not a fan of short naps for one reason or the other, just close your eyes, relax, and spend some time in that position. Maybe listening to some music or no music, just, allowing your mind to just wander and relax. So close your eyes. This is practice number 1 that is in this article on 5-minute habit that will change your life. The second practice is daydream, and that is about allowing your mind to just wander while you observe life, like people walking around, or perhaps you looking at some artwork that is in front of you, or maybe observing nature, and just allow your mind to wander. And again, keep your notepad by your side so you jot down your ideas, your thoughts, because again, that practice allows your mind, your brain to relax. And in that state, you're much more open, you're much more creative, and some, again, ideas and solutions might pop up into your brain. So daydream, set an alarm, so you don't miss anything important, allow your brain to wander and and unleash your creativity. So that is practice number 2, to switch into parasympathetic state and mode of your nervous system. And practice number 3, that is one of the most powerful physiological practice that changes your mind instantaneously. Breathe, right? Learning different breathing techniques like a physiological sigh, it's a double inhale and long exhale, or box breathing that has also in studies been shown to improve your heart rate variability, to improve your vagus nerve tone, and to help you to switch between those, parasympathetic and sympathetic modes of your nervous system, fight or flight, and rest and digest, and just be more conscious, more present, also training your focus. So many good things are gonna come out when you practice breath work regularly. And so just taking 5 minutes and doing some sort of breath work, again, box breathing to start, or physiological sigh. This will also switch your nervous system into parasympathetic mode, where you are more creative, where you allow your nervous system and your brain to restore, recover, and to get to work again, but better, with more ideas, more creativity, and more reserves for your productive day. This I wanted to share because Again, your productivity, and especially if you're super hardworking, isn't about your next level isn't about the hours or more hours you're going to put into your work. Your next level is coming up with a better solution, what to do with your time. And you cannot do that when you're stressed and tense and underslept. You're going to do the same stuff over and over and over again, working yourself into, maybe not into the ground, but you're just going to stay in the same level and working harder and harder, not realizing that you actually might have a better solution. You just never allow your brain to get into the state it needs to be in to come up with a better solution, what to do with your time, so you work less, but deliver greater results and greater quality of your life, right? It's very important, the recovery. And for a lot of hardworking people, not just entrepreneurs, it's just not something that you practice naturally. You need to learn it and read about how it worked before you start doing that. And I became a fan once I learned that, hey, actually, if I recover and sleep and rest enough, I do come up with better ideas, and I do the same amount of work in much less time, and I feel better, my whole day, my quality of life improves, and my health and interactions with other people. And it's like life becomes this magical thing, and I get more results and better results. So that's when I became a total fan and adopter of all kinds of recovery practices. And that's where I also got better at teaching those, of course, to my clients. Now, the second article, it's the study finds.org, and the name of the article, keeping too many tabs open on your browser can worsen your mental health. And the article is about, by the way, the study was done in Finland, and the study is about how mess in our digital life on our devices, like keeping a lot of tabs open with, for different purposes. Like maybe one is for working purposes, the other is for some shopping on Amazon, the third one is on some vacation that you might be planning in some near or not so near future. And that mess and keeping a lot of tabs open actually adds to your cognitive load and you start feeling overwhelmed and stressed and anxious. And that reminded me of a concept that we have in coaching, concept of open loops. What it basically means is when you have a lot of unfinished business in your life and in your work, your brain dedicates some of your cognitive capacity to keeping the tab open and working on that and analyzing and figuring out the solution to close the tab so you could get some result and you could move on. But if you never close things and you leave them open, hanging, that might be also relationships and conversations, emails that you need to respond, more and more stuff just accumulates and is on hold, and your brain is dedicating some of its capacity to that, and you have less and less available to your work right here, right now, and you just, again, get into this just reactive mode when you do the minimum, when you just, react, when you do the same stuff, and you, again, never tap into your full potential and better solutions. And all that it leads to is you staying on the same level and at the same time feeling overwhelmed, tensed, stressed, and anxious. So what do you do with your browser? Based on this study that just created, a correlation between the mess on our computers and our digital devices and the mental health, mental state outcomes when it comes to, humans. So in real life, what you should do to avoid this overwhelm because of the clutter of this mess is to keep your loops and your tabs closed unless you need them. And if you need to have some tabs somewhere else saved, then what you do is you put it in your folder somewhere. I'm talking about right now about computer, and you name that folder or that project. And when you decide to work on that project, that's when you open that folder and all of these tabs saved. In life, to close the loop, never leave it hanging. Like if you have a conversation and you told the other person you're going to follow up, or tell this person, I'm going to look at it at this specific date and I'm going to get back to you. And what you do after that, you put that on your calendar to look at that on that specific date, and you save all the necessary materials to that, to some folder, maybe on your Google Drive, for example, and you name this folder and maybe put a note there that you're supposed to do that for that person on that specific day. And that's how you close this loop. And then when the time comes, you're going to get a notification and you can open up to that loop and work on it, right? Or if you had a conversation, always close the loop. If there is something bothering you, what you do, you either talk to this person or you talk to yourself or you talk with a therapist and close that loop. Never leave stuff hanging. Otherwise, you're going to accumulate stress, tension, and overwhelm that will not allow you to live your life fully. That's the bottom line of this study. And now the last 3 points, we're actually going to talk about nutrition, and that's going to be quicker. So studyfinds.org, low fat or low carb study reveals which diet leads to a longer life. And that is the study from Beijing, China. So they took 11,000 participants, I believe. No, the study actually involved many more people. 500,000 older people in the United States. The age is, I believe, was from 60 to 70, or 50 to 70. Yeah, 50 to 71 years old, and without any conditions. And they analyzed the types of foods that those people reported eating. And what they learned is that when it comes to health outcomes, they follow up with those people for a few years, and some people, died. Some people had diseases accumulating. that we usually get more of with age, like heart disease or all kinds of arthritis or cognitive decline like Alzheimer's or dementia. What they found is that there is no specific diet, low fat or low carb, that worked better. But what worked better in every single case is higher quality diet. Meaning it didn't matter whether you ate low fat or low carb. What mattered is where those fats and carbs came from. So if you were on a low fat diet and just changed the quality of your fats, where those fats or other foods came from, then your health outcomes would improve. If you were on a low carb but bad quality, like processed foods quality diet, then it didn't matter how many carbs you ate, your health outcomes wouldn't be that great. But if you were on a low carb diet that had a higher quality of unprocessed, vegetables and fruit and meats and fish and whole grains and nuts and seeds and dairy. So if the quality of your diet got better, your health outcomes got better. So that is what the study showed. And I've been preaching it basically for the past decade. Doesn't matter, low fat, low carb, do whatever, but get your essential nutrients in, your macronutrients, your proteins, your fiber, your essential fats, your vitamins and minerals. So get your essential nutrients from high quality foods. The higher, the better, meaning the closer to unprocessed state, the better. So get that from your foods, and it doesn't freaking matter how many carbs and fats you eat. Of course, if you have some sensitivities and allergies and something disturbs your gut, that's another reason. That's another question, a topic. But eliminating certain food group or carbs or fats just because it's popular, it's not going to create better health outcomes. Again, what creates better outcomes, and there is more and more data coming out about that, is the quality of your diet. How much of unprocessed food you eat and how much processed food you eat. That's gonna determine health outcomes for you now and many years from now. Now, more on the ultra-processed foods. So there is an article that came out in the New York Times. I believe it was somewhere around mid last week, the link between highly processed foods and brain health. Eating packaged foods like cereal and frozen meals has been associated with anxiety, depression, and cognitive decline. Scientists are still piecing together why exactly. So the whole article goes into this fact that more and more people eat more and more of their calories from ultra-processed foods. In the article, it says roughly 60% of the calories in the average American diet come from highly processed foods. And usually the more countries start to resemble the US, the more they eat like the US, more and more foods from highly processed foods. And what they see is increased risk of diabetes, obesity, cancer, and then the cognitive decline, it accelerates. So people get their cognitive function diminished, meaning you have poor memory, you're not that great at processing information, you're not that great at solving problems, you're not that great at doing anything in life, really, because your brain is everything you do in life. You process life through your brain. And so the decline accelerates, and the acceleration rate is about 28%, right? So your brain will decline 28% faster when you eat 60% and more of your calories from ultra-processed foods. I think that was the percent, yeah. There was a significant increase in mentally unhealthy days for those eating 60% or more of their calories from ultra-processed foods. So it's not just, cognitive capacity, it's also the depression, the anxiety, the mood swings, the low moods, all of that increases when people eat 60% and more of their calories from, and specifically calories foods. Folks, remember that unprocessed foods, they occupy a lot more volume, like let's say fruit and vegetables. You have a lot more volume, but it's a lot less calories than, let's say, you take a I don't know, candy bar. 100 grams of like chocolate candy bar would be about 500 calories. So it's like 25% of your supposed, to be calories would come from that chocolate bar. And now compare that to apples. 100 apples is about 50 calories. So a kilogram of apples would be about 500 calories. So imagine 100 grams of candy bar or a whole kilogram of apples. So if you think, well, I eat some whole foods, that's probably is okay. But again, remember that calories in processed foods are more condensed. You can have a big burger and that's basically 60% of your daily calorie need there. So just remember about this fact. And back to the study, another question that I'd like you to understand or concept, what are ultra-processed foods? Ultra-processed foods, to make it simple, are those packaged foods where they have ingredients that you wouldn't buy home to cook with. So there might be all kinds of sweeteners, artificial flavorings and colorings. And just stuff you don't understand and you wouldn't buy it for home. Like, some E or D or whatever that, chemicals name, you wouldn't buy them for your home. And the more, of course, of those ingredients are, the worse the situation is. You can buy minimally processed foods, like let's say canned seafood or canned vegetables, and they would have something like water and salt, and maybe in some cases, a little bit of sugar, maybe in some cases, pepper or some other spices and herbs, things that you understand, they might be there, and the food might be processed, but it is minimal processing, and that is not correlated with poor health outcome. The same goes, of course, for frozen foods. If you have your frozen broccoli, they're just as good as your fresh broccoli, even though they're a little bit more processed, right? So that's what you want to understand about processed foods and ultra-processed food and minimally processed foods. This whole hierarchy of processing, like processed foods, minimally processed foods, cooking and culinary ingredients, and ultra-processed foods. It was created in Brazil, and now it is adopted worldwide because it is kind of effective when it comes to health outcomes. Another aspect of this article that I wanted to talk about is, so the scientists do not understand really how it works, how ultra-processed foods make health outcomes so much worse. And they think that it probably because those foods do not contain essential nutrients like your vitamins and minerals and proteins and essential fats. Sometimes they contain nutrients that make your gut microbiome unbalanced, and we know that that leads to all kinds of negative outcomes. Sometimes they say that different artificial sweeteners, emulsifiers can also impact our gut microbiome negatively, creating in a way that our gut microbiome starts creating more negative health affecting compounds. And that's, a couple of mechanisms that they think processed foods, by which processed food makes us unhealthy. And then also, of course, we tend to eat ultra processed foods more because the calories are so condensed and the producer makes them so appealing, and consistent overeating on anything isn't a good news. So that's, the way they think ultra-processed foods work, but they're exactly not sure. But what they're sure about is that the more ultra-processed foods you eat, no matter what calorie count they are, even if you eat 2,000 calories diet, but it comes from poor quality ultra-processed foods, you're going to get poor health outcomes, from heart disease to diabetes to cancer, and your brain will start working much worse. The more of those foods, the worse the outcomes. And the last brainy bullet for today is about also gut health. So this one is from latestly.com. And the article is about health news. Study shows how diet quality affects gut microbiota to promote health. So this study has been done in Washington, and it's been published on May 6th. So they already know that gut microbiota gut microbiome is affected by many factors of our lifestyle, of stress management, of our nutrition, but they still don't have the exact guideline. Okay, what do we eat? What do we do to create the best kind of gut microbiome? In fact, we don't really understand what's the definition of a healthy microbiome. Like, it seems that the more diverse our gut microbiome is, the better, from research and human studies. But we don't really know, okay, like, what's the percentage of this gut microbiome of that? We are not even sure that we register all of the organisms that are in our gut. But what they know for sure now is that, again, creating diversity in our gut microbiome is the best kind of intention for our gut health that translates into more positive health outcomes and also into more positive mental health and brain performance. So with this study and many other studies similar to this one showed is that eating a variety of different fibers from different plant-based foods, from beans and grains to nuts and seeds to fruit and vegetables. So eating a variety of those foods, eating your fermented foods for probiotics, for naturally occurring probiotics, eating mostly unprocessed food diet, containing all of the nutrients we need, all the proteins, all the fats. So that works for creating the most diverse gut microbiome. What doesn't work is eating not just poor quality diet, but poor diversity diet, meaning you eat like 5 different foods in your daily menu and that's about it. That also creates a very vulnerable gut microbiome because you feed only, just a few kinds of bacteria, and that also makes your gut microbiome not as resilient and is prone to more infections and different imbalances, right? So that's why you want to eat a lot of different foods. I believe they say a day you need to eat like 30 different plants or something in the ideal outcomes. Maybe not 30, maybe, a little bit less. Need to actually look that up, that piece of the study. But again, the more variety, the better. That's why I personally, every day, I try to introduce some variety, and I do that by simply, when I go shopping, I don't pick one vegetable or one fruit. I pick up a whole variety. I pick up a couple of apples, a couple of pears, some oranges, some, here, for example, I have guavas, persimmons, bananas, what's in season. When it comes to vegetables, I pick up, broccoli and Brussels sprouts and spinach and Swiss chard, and asparagus and green beans. I pick up, different kinds of things, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, my onions, my tomatoes. When it comes to protein, I pick up some seafood, some chicken livers, more seafood, eggs, and different meats. Like here, I want to try ostrich. The more variety of different kinds of food groups you have, not just one kind of nut, but some walnuts and some hazelnuts and some Brazil nuts, all kinds of varieties. You're gonna feed different kinds of bacteria, and that will create more diverse, more resilient gut microbiome that will translate short and long term into a lot of positive outcomes. And your gut microbiome will be much harder to get out of balance. And that's about it, right? We don't understand how exactly it works, but we do know that this seems to work the best. And fiber, folks, focus on fiber, 30 grams of fiber per day at least. And there is another piece of research that I shared with you on the episode that we did last week, the episode before this one, is that to get those 30 grams of fiber, eat about 800 grams of fruit and vegetables every single day, and you get all kinds of different fibers, right? And, beans are fiber superfood. So if you really want to upgrade your fiber count with the most beneficial kind of fiber for your gut, eat a cup of cooked beans and or lentils And your gut microbiome will get additional about 10 to 15 grams of fiber, and the kind of fiber that feeds your gut microbiome, that maintains gut lining and creates short chain fatty acids and all kinds of beneficial gut compounds. That, and by the way, folks, don't forget that there is gut-brain axis, that what happens in your gut, all these millions and trillions of bacteria there, they affect your brain performance, your brain's productivity, your brain's resilience, your mood, and a lot of other things. Especially if you struggle, with attention, with focus, with ADHD, with mood swings, with anxiety. Just look in your gut and what you put there, because the answer to your poor brain performance or poor mental states might be on your plate and in your gut. And that's about it. That's everything that I wanted to share with you in this 5-bullet brainy Monday episode. We talked about opened tabs and loops in your devices and in your mind. We talked about low fat, low carb diet, eating ultra processed foods, the best diet for your gut microbiome. And we talked about the best practices, the simplest, I think, practices and the best practices to manage your switch from sympathetic fight or flight to parasympathetic rest and digest state, so you could unleash your creativity and best decisions, so you could deliver your best potential and best quality of life into this world. And that's it. If you have any questions, folks, please feel free to reach out, Angela@brainbreakthroughcoach.com. And please do share this podcast episode with friends, with family, with kids, with any relatives, any people so we all know how to take better care of ourselves, of our guts, of our brains, so we all do better in this world, feel better, and together create an amazing life experience for all of us. So folks, share, you'll do me a huge favor, and have an awesome week, and you'll hear from me very soon.